Welcome back to the Astrology Report, this time for September 4th through September 10th of 2023. My name is Cam White. If you don't know me already, make sure you subscribe. If you guys want to be up to date with all of the astrological transits that are going on as well, make sure you like this video. It helps out the algorithm, and comment below because we start off this week with a lot of major transits, and I really want to know what actually ends up shifting for you guys this week. So let me know what's been going on for you guys in the comments below. But first off, I'm recording this, of course, before Sunday, and you guys are watching this on Sunday. So if you are watching this on Sunday and you are in the Denver area and you are thinking about going to the picnic, please join us Sunday. Again, 12 o'clock at Observatory Park here in Denver. We'll be there from 12 noon till kind of whenever. I think last year we were there till like sunset, and then a couple of us went out to go drinks and off like Broadway. So if you want to join us, please do. And if you did join us, and if you're watching this afterwards, thank you. I'm sure it was a lot of fun. I'm going to double check. The weather keeps changing. I'm almost positive the weather's going to be good though. It does say 40% chance of rain. Okay, well, if it rains, it's still going to be fun. Come out anyway. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So we're starting Monday off with quite a few things. The first thing I want to talk about is Venus stationing direct. Now, technically Venus stationed direct on Sunday, the day that you're watching this more than likely. And even though we're talking about Monday, September 4th, I think, Venus doesn't station direct till really late in the evening, but something I wanted to talk about was what's nice about Venus moving forward and stationing direct is at least a forward movement is happening. Feeling like Venus being retrograde is like letting go of desires or not enjoying something, like not getting the pleasure that you want out of something. And Venus stationing direct, moving forward as morning star, is saying, this is what I really want. I'm going to go after this thing now. And now that we're at that point, over the past, Venus has been retrograde since the end of July. So it's been a little while, a little over a month. I think Venus is retrograde for like 40 days. And so with Venus stationing direct moving forward as we start this week, I think there's a refreshing feeling of this is what I want to pursue. This is what I want. This is what I desire at this point. But the other highlight that we have going on Monday is in the afternoon, we are going to be having Jupiter station retrograde. And the big thing here is now that Jupiter's been in Taurus for some time, Jupiter moving direct and being in that forward movement is at a very, very minimum, whatever house it goes into in your chart is saying, let's look at this area in a more deeper perspective. Let's look at the meaning, the philosophy. What is your faith around this area? What are your beliefs around this area? And it's Jupiter and Taurus, like, where are things stagnant, or where do you want more stability? Where do you want more security? Where do you want more slow growth? Like, nutrition is a good way to look at it. And there could be at the very extreme end a lot of opportunities, like for the Leo risings. Career has just been an absolutely crazy thing for you guys as of late. And there could have been a lot of opportunities, a lot of, expansion with Jupiter. And as Jupiter goes retrograde, the analogy that I've been using is like if you're starting a business and you're looking for investment, well, you've gotten your initial round of investment now. And with Jupiter going retrograde, it's like there's no more investment. It's time to allocate those resources properly. And with Jupiter being retrograde, this is not another way I've been putting it is Jupiter being direct is like the classroom work, and now we're doing the field work. And what I mean by that is, when you learn something in a classroom, you can be like, oh, I understand this, and, this should be pretty easy. But then when you go to do it in real life, there's all these other circumstances that maybe you weren't taught or that you weren't prepared for that can throw you in for a loop and really challenge your education and challenge, your ability to get that job done. And so Jupiter going retrograde is, again, at another minimum, a reflection on those beliefs, an internalization of that faith. And if Jupiter going into Taurus and moving forward is saying like, okay, this is where my beliefs are now. This is what I really want to, soak up. Jupiter retrograde is saying, okay, it's not just going to come to you naturally. You're going to have to earn it. Like, I can't remember I was trying to remember this on my monthly rising sign horoscopes that I just published on my Patreon. I can't remember how the saying goes, but it's like, in order to see it, you have to believe it. And that's the way I look at Jupiter retrograde is like, Jupiter being direct is saying, okay, like it's easy for you to see it. And if you see it, you do believe it. But this time around, you have to believe it before you see it. You have to have that faith in order to get that outcome. Now, what I will say, and I haven't talked a lot about this, but this is, for example, the last Mars retrograde we had. So that was all of November, December, January, and mostly into January. But people who have Mars retrograde natally typically do better when Mars is retrograde. And in a lot of my client work, that seemed to be the case. Like most of the people who had Mars retrograde were pretty much doing a little bit better. And I think that's the same thing for any planet that stations retrograde. So if you have Jupiter retrograde, this might be more of a time where you see the benefits of Jupiter in Taurus. This might be where, like, you know, the wind is in your sails a little bit more. But Jupiter goes retrograde. And I think what's interesting is, given Jupiter's in Venus' sign, Venus stations direct, we're moving forward with this desire. Jupiter being retrograde is like, all right, well, if you really want this, you may not have that belief just yet that you can get what you want. But that's what this time is for. This is a time to change those beliefs, to change that programming that you have that says, I can't, or I don't believe in X, Y, and Z. The other thing that we have going on Monday is Mercury will be making a trine to Jupiter. I think this is cool because as Mercury is retrograde and Jupiter's retrograde, there is it's like overlooking a small thing and then reviewing it and being like, oh, that was the missing piece that, you know, puts everything together for me. With Mercury being retrograde still, again, I still say that this is like pretty much one of the best Mercury retrogrades you can get. Like, it's trining Jupiter, it's not hitting Saturn, it's not hitting Mars. Mercury being retrograde, trining Jupiter retrograde, I think is just being able to see things in a different perspective, allowing that space to happen. And I think that it makes it easier to deal with Jupiter being retrograde. Now that things will kind of slow down and reverse a little bit, Mercury's already in the reverse position. So the way I look at it is, if Mercury, which is much more about like our intellect and our rationale and being like, let me understand everything in black and white, it's retrograde. So it's trying to see things differently. Jupiter being about like our higher mind, our beliefs, our faith, now going retrograde is like, oh, it's just getting like our higher mind or spiritual self more aligned with like our rational brain. And so there just seems to be a very big mental click happening on Monday. The other thing is, on Monday, the moon will be making a trine to Mercury. It will, I believe, actually, let me double check. So I think the moon squares Venus first. Let me add that with a caveat. The moon will make a square to Venus, then trine Mercury, then conjoin Jupiter. So the moon squaring Venus, hey, we have the moon making an aspect to Venus while it's in Taurus, while it's exalted. Cool, we love that. I just think the moon making a square to Venus is, the moon in Taurus wants to be comfortable, it wants to be a little bit more slow, and it's squaring Venus and Leo. There might be kind of a slow roll into getting things started. And I think that's okay, because I think as the moon makes that trine to Mercury and makes that conjunction to Jupiter, the moon making a trine to Mercury is essentially, while Mercury is retrograde, like seeing a different perspective and gaining a solution out of it. Moon trine Mercury is saying, oh, maybe if I do take my time and I do slow things down a little bit, we will be able to resolve the issue that we were addressing. And after the moon trines Mercury, then conjoins Jupiter, it's like, boom, solution. Sometimes moving slower can get your result faster. I'm going to totally botch this quote. So Parker, put this quote underneath me because I'm going to botch it, but it's like slow is slow. Hold on. I got to look this up. Parker, you could probably cut this out. It's like slow is efficient. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. That's what the saying is. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's how I look at the moon in Taurus. Again, making that, it's going to square Venus. Okay, we might want it to be, loud and proud. But the moon, making that trine to Mercury retrograde, allowing ourselves to see things in a different perspective. And then the moon conjoins Jupiter. It's like, hey, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So the way that I would look at Monday is taking your time with things. Things really, really shift. And slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I think you'll see the result that you want if you just take your time with things. We then move into Tuesday, and the only really thing we got going on Tuesday is a bunch of lunar transits. The moon's going to hit all the outer planets, so it'll conjoin Uranus, it'll sextile Neptune, it'll trine Pluto. And I think the way I look at that is the moon will conjoin Uranus. I think when it comes to the outer planets, conjunctions are always going to be more important than any other aspect. But the moon will conjoin Uranus. There's some sort of, again, it's a two-way street with Uranus. Instability, things being very unpredictable, or innovation and liberation and like a shocking jolt that like changes everything for better or for worse. And after the moon makes that conjunction to Uranus, so there's that kind of a shakeup, it will then sextile Neptune and it will trine Pluto. I think here I like this better. I think this is a more positive moon conjunction to Uranus because it'll sextile Neptune, where it kind of plays into that, Neptune being about how you see things idealistically or with rose-colored glasses. The moon will make that sextile where it's like, okay, I can create this vision that I'm looking for. And then the moon will try and Pluto, where there is like an empowerment feeling there. But then afterwards, the moon is going to go into Gemini and square Saturn, which isn't the worst thing ever. But as the moon does ingress into Gemini, now we're looking at stimulation. We're looking for answers. We're, chatting. There's a lot of communication going on. We're more open about our emotions. We're more expressive of our emotions. But as it squares Saturn, have you ever maybe someone asked you your opinion or something like that, and you go to express it and you don't really know how you feel about a situation? Like the moon in Gemini squaring Saturn is like, you don't know what you don't know. For example, I have Gemini placements, right? I'm always researching something to understand more. But a problem that I encounter quite often is, okay, I want to know more about this thing, but I don't even know what the right questions are. I don't even know if what I'm looking into is the right thing that's going to give me the solution that I'm looking for. So I think on Tuesday, there's an excitement once the moon goes into Gemini, but as it squares Saturn, it's you're not really sure what the right questions are. Or maybe you think you have the right questions, and as you look things up and you try to get those answers don't actually align with the questions that you have. And so there's this kind of the way that I would look at it is ask questions, be open-minded, express things, but understand you may not get those answers that you want. And that's not necessarily to say that you'll never get those answers, but maybe you have to be asking better questions. And on Tuesday, that frustration or that kind of, wall that you'll hit with Saturn is an opportunity to really reflect and say, okay, what do I not know? So I can then ask better questions. And then we get into Wednesday, and on Wednesday, the moon will be making a trine to Mars. It will then sextile Venus, and it will square Mercury. Actually, let me double check that's what happens because I fucked up a few things here. Yeah, the moon will trine Mars, sextile Venus, square Mercury. So as the moon's in Gemini and it trines Mars, Mars in Libra is, again, this kind of a weakness, this kind of Mars wants very direct action. Mars wants to take initiative now. Mars wants to, of course, be combative and fight. But with Mars in Libra, there's one perspective that is, okay, energy is just weaker at this time. The ambition level is not super there at the moment. But what can we do with it? Mars in Libra is okay, I think this is another indicator of maybe taking our time with things. For example, I used this analogy, I think, last year for Mars in Libra, but Mars in Libra or not last year, it would have been 2 years ago, so 2021. Whew, I can't believe that was 2 years ago. Mars in Libra is a very pretty show knife versus Mars in Aries is an actual blade meant for working. And if you know anything about knives, a dull knife is typically more dangerous than a sharp knife. Because if that knife, slips, it can still cut you. If that knife is dull and you got to really work it in there, you're going to get a jagged edge, and it makes it less controllable. It's more, Mars in Libra is more for show. And the reason I even bring that up is, okay, well, if this is a show knife, if this is a knife of, let's say, on a dinner set, that is meant for your, really fancy dinner parties, why are you using it to cut open a chicken? That's not the right tool for the right job. A nice, classy butter knife, it'll do the job of getting the butter on there, but you don't want to use that for cutting things. And so it's just about knowing, what tool is right for what job. And I look at Mars in Libra as, hey, this isn't the time to be that Aries and rambunctious thing, but it's kind of more of a learning, hey, this is the knife that I have, and what should I use this knife for? Now, that comes with a caveat because here soon we will have Mars conjoin the South Node once we get into eclipse season. We are going to have a full moon in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And the North Node is in Aries, so it's ruled by Mars. So there's a lot of attention on Mars here. But the way I look at it is Mars is in Libra, trying to be less combative with people and trying to be more working with people. Like I said, I've used that lawyer analogy all the time. Trying to fight everything in a court of law is only going to get you more in trouble. So why I bring this up is on Wednesday, as the moon makes that trine to Mars, conversation can be like a tool. Debate can be a tool, and you're never going to change someone's mind by being like, you're stupid, you are believing the wrong thing, but more so of like, hey, how can we, put them in the driver's seat and say, this is, let's say this is your worldview or you have this belief. But if we ask this right question, can you maybe see how that comes into conflict, or maybe that's not the right way to see a situation? And so the moon in Gemini making that trine to Mars in Libra is using communication as a tool. I don't like to say the word weapon, but as a tool to, again, work with someone else in a way that might be not necessarily head-on-head conflict, but you are conflicting with this person. There's no need to fight and rebel against them, but like, how can you make them see things differently by themselves seeing things differently? Like, you're never going to change someone's mind by saying, you need to change your mind. They have to change their mind themselves. And it's until they see it, until they see it like on their own, they're never going to look at it. So the moon does that, and then it sextiles Venus. What I love about that sort of way of debate is it's very charming. Like, the moon sextiling Venus is like, you can be charming with it. You can be complimentary with, getting people to question things more, or look, given the past 3 years, getting people to change their mind about any of this stuff, it doesn't work when you just like yell at them. And all it does is create the divide, versus if you say, okay, let me put my arms down. Let's come to the negotiation table here. And rather than try to fight combatively, it's like, well, hey, what about, this perspective, or where, how do you see, this? And can you look at that differently? Or can you see my perspective more? And I just think the moon making that trine to Mars and then sextiling Venus is allowing for a room for charm to come in and to work things out. Like, Wednesday is really about like working the charm, working the communication. The only issue, and this isn't really an issue because this is a double-edged sword here, the moon will square Mercury after that. Mercury is retrograde, and the moon in Gemini squaring Mercury is one of those things where the communication isn't adding up with what, Now, the thing is, on Wednesday, we have the Mercury Cazimi. That's the big highlight on Wednesday. What's cool about Wednesday is, like I've said, Mercury's been retrograde in Virgo. It's like redoing logistics and supply chains and reorganizing everything. The Mercury Cazimi is one of two things. One, it's like you now know what the problem was, and now you can work towards a solution between, the Cazimi and the stationing direct. Or it's when you figure out what that solution is, and then from the Cazimi to the station direct is implementing that solution. So Wednesday is nice for getting to that solution, having those clearing conversations, understanding what is next. Not that you're going to immediately be able to act on it, but at least having that clarity. The thing is, when the moon squares Mercury, though, is that, for example, you may be in a paradigm where you think you know things, but someone can communicate something with you that doesn't add up with the paradigm of what you've been told. Let's think about the past couple years here. For example, it blows my mind that the other day Biden was like, oh, we're going to actually use tax dollars for a vaccine that will work this time. Boy, was that revolutionary. Was that very revealing. But it's one of those things where the moon in Gemini making that square to Mercury retrograde is like, Mercury's retrograde. We're already kind of understanding and communicating things differently. The moon in Gemini is someone telling you something that doesn't necessarily add up to, I could sit here and say the facts. My issue with that is Mercury is retrograde and it's a Cazimi. So part of me is like, okay, well, maybe it's this moon squaring Mercury that allows for that insight and that clarity to say, oh, this is what I didn't understand before, or this is what I didn't see before. And although I don't necessarily like hearing that, it at least gives me the room to change things. So I think Wednesday is a lot of charm, and then it comes to a point where you're going to hear something, there's going to be something communicated that changes your mind about a situation that you might it might rub you the wrong way, but it is going to allow you to see something differently. Then we get into Thursday, and the moon just squares Neptune all day. And the moon doesn't actually hit that square to Neptune till way later in the evening. And the moon's in Gemini, right? We're really curious. We're asking questions, especially after this Cazimi. But the moon squaring Neptune kind of comes back to that moon square Saturn. Moon square Saturn is so much more of I don't know what the answers are, versus moon square Neptune is there's too much information out there. Like, this is something I hate about one of the negatives or the results of, the internet and information is, I don't like saying the term misinformation or disinformation or malinformation. But there's so much out there that it can be very overwhelming to understand what is true. And I think there's truth to everything, but it's more so of like, what is true for you? What is not necessarily even the truth you're looking for, but what is going to work for you? And I look at the moon squaring Neptune as feeling overwhelmed and confused about what all the options are. Like, for example, if you're working on car and mechanic YouTube is super big, and it's like, well, there's this and there's that. Same thing with health. Same thing with, there's all types of things. I mean, same thing with astrology. People are going to sit here and tell you Pluto rules Scorpio, and there's a long history of saying Mars rules Scorpio, and I still get comments that are like, Pluto rules Scorpio. What are you talking about? And no, it doesn't. And I'll debate anybody on that because it doesn't rule it. There's a 5,000 year history of Mars ruling Scorpio. And then Pluto came into the picture, and then everyone's like, Pluto rules Scorpio. But there's all types of just a lot of information out there. And I look at Thursday with the moon squaring Neptune, is just feeling lost in the sauce. There's too many answers. There's too much information. And my advice on Thursday is just kind of like, you don't have to absorb all of it, but you might have to sit in that confusion for a minute, right? You're not always going to have the answers to everything you want immediately. That's a part of life, especially when you are learning something, especially when you are, trying to investigate something. This is just one of those days where it's like, if you're absolutely determined on getting an answer, you're probably going to feel really overwhelmed versus if you understand, hey, I'm going to get a lot of information on this day and I might feel overwhelmed and that I don't need to make a decision on it right at this moment. I think you'll handle it a lot better. Then we get to Friday, and the moon will ingress into Cancer. It will then make a trine to Saturn. It will then square Mars and then sextile Mercury. Kind of a weird lunar day because I think as the moon goes into Cancer, like I always say, we're talking about necessity, taking care of ourselves, protection, comfort, empathy and sympathy. And so the moon goes into Cancer, we get a lot more sensitive. We get a little bit more emotional. But it will make a trine to Saturn. And as we tap more into the more fluid part of our, when I say fluid part of ourselves, it's like emotions change. Emotions are, there was something that was said that was like, you experience like 7 or 8 different emotions a day. Like there's only so many emotions that you have, but you experience like all of them throughout like one day. As we're tapping more into that part of ourselves, the moon making that trine to Saturn, I think is giving us a little bit more stability, saying, hey, it's safe to feel this, but also you don't need your emotions to dictate everything that you do. Like we are emotional creatures at heart. And this is something I state this from a place as a student. Trying to live a life in which your emotions don't dictate all of your actions requires a lot of discipline and time. And I look at the moon making that trine to Saturn in Pisces as like, how can I feel these emotions without acting impulsively on the emotions? And the moon trine Saturn is like allowing for a space for that to work easier. But then the moon makes that square to Mars. And that's the challenge. The moon in Cancer making that square to Mars in Libra. It's reactionary. It's totally like, I'm feeling emotional, so I'm totally just going to wreck everything. It's kind of like, again, coming back to that courtroom analogy. If you're in the courthouse and you're the defendant and the prosecution or the whatever the other word is says something absolutely crazy about you and you go like, that's a lie, you can't do all that, and then again that makes you look bad, and then it turns into this whole thing. The moon squaring Mars on Friday is going to be a little difficult. I would really ask you to control your emotions, and you will need that as the moon squares Mars. The moon in Cancer making that square to Mars in Libra is some sort of a tough decision. And you have to do what you know that you need to do, although it's going to be uncomfortable. Mars in Libra is, being indecisive, not acting. It's kind of going back on our decisions in a lot of ways. And I look at the moon in Cancer making that square to Mars as like, you can't back out of this one. This is a decision that you have to make, and it is emotional. It is hard, but you need to do it. But you don't need to be reactionary. You don't need to be impulsive with it. And then the moon makes that sextile to Mercury, and Mercury's retrograde, where I think here it is just a sextile, but there is a more of a refreshing understanding of the situation, right? If Mercury's retrograde in Virgo, we're, changing our plans, we're changing, our timelines, we're changing, what we have on paper after that moon squares Mars and then it sextiles Mercury. It's like, cool. Now, what other things do we have to check off our to-do list? And the highlight that we have on Friday is the sun will trine Jupiter. So again, I talk about this in my course. I never promote my course. I have a How to Read Your Birth Chart course in my in the description, in the link below. If you don't know a lot about astrology and you really want to get like a foundational understanding of like the very basics, this course is perfect for you. If you already know quite a bit of stuff, like I really wouldn't recommend it. But if the reason I made this course is so many people get into astrology and feel overwhelmed with all the information. But if you just want to put together what the fuck are the planets, the houses, the aspects, how does this all work together? I even have a video about, again, like retrograde planets in the birth chart. I'd really recommend this course for you guys. But the reason I bring this up is Jupiter goes retrograde / stations direct when the sun is making a trine to it. Not always exactly, but around that time. Now, when the sun makes that trine to Jupiter, the sun is, again, our willpower, our energy, like our vitality in a lot of ways. And as it makes that trine to Jupiter, the sun's in Virgo, we're being analytical, we're being detailed, that back to school season stuff. Trining Jupiter retrograde in Taurus is like, the way I almost look at it is like you bought all of your back to school stuff in May when school was ending and you got all the discounts and now you're ready to go. Like you stocked up on it before, or you got all the good deals. So you feel prepared for a situation. You understand a situation better. So then we get to Saturday and the moon will make a sextile to Jupiter and Uranus. Again, the moon's in Cancer. We are talking about like necessity, taking care of things, protection. It's sextiling Jupiter and Taurus. We might have the resources, like we have the resources for it. We have the stability that we need for it. And it sextiles Uranus. Maybe you have something that you can, what is it called? Jerry rig? There's another term for that, but like having an innovative solution to an issue to take care of something. Like, for example, if you do any mechanic work, like sometimes duct tape and zip ties are just going to fix everything because you are probably going to have duct tape and zip ties at some point. The moon just sextiling, Jupiter is like, I have the resources. The moon sextiling Uranus is saying, I can find an innovative way to take care of this problem. So Saturday looks pretty chill. And then, of course, we get to Sunday. And again, the moon is just making aspects to the outer planets here. And the moon will make a trine to Neptune and go opposite Pluto and then ingress into Leo. So on Sunday, the moon makes that trine to Neptune, and it's not bad. It's just Neptune in Pisces is diluting the water so much. And while the moon's in Cancer, making the trine to it, it's kind of like pretending that you're hydrated, but you're not. Like, for example, drinking distilled water is bad. And if you know nothing about water, this is all stuff I'm relatively new to. Like in my head, I'm like, oh, distilled water. Like, I don't know. It's still water, still good for you. But like, no, it strips all the minerals away from you. The moon trining Neptune is kind of like, or for example, even like alkaline water and all of that kind of good stuff. Same thing with like filtered water. Like a lot of filtered water is not the best thing for you because you need minerals in the water and you're not actually getting hydrated from that water because you're not getting your electrolytes. You're not getting your, potassium, your magnesium, your sodium and stuff like that. And I look at the moon trining Neptune as kind of like, oh, I have a Brita filter now, so therefore I am now hydrated and there was something I just read in the news too about like Brita filters are like super bad for you, which doesn't really surprise me. And I don't know enough about that. So if you heard about that, let me know in the comments. But the moon, it's like thinking that you're being taken care of, but maybe you're not seeing everything in the right way. Now, there's another way of looking at it as kind of like, have you ever done something and just it made you feel like everything in your life is taken care of? Like there's a good part to the moon trine Neptune. There's a bad part to the moon trine Neptune. The bad part would be like, don't gas yourself up too much. The good part would be, hey, if you're taking care of business and everything's like fine, you can relish in that for a moment. The only issue is the moon will then go opposite Pluto, where the Pluto and Capricorn stuff, like I think there's more to talk about with Pluto going into Aquarius at the beginning of next year, or I think it's I can't remember if it's at the beginning of next year. I have 2024 horoscopes I'm already working on, by the way. I think we'll see. I'm still on the fence if we're going to see more mandates and more lockdowns. It wouldn't surprise me at all, given Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. It'll probably happen before that. But Pluto, you know, this is the thing I don't understand about people's understanding of Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto is at the very last degrees of Capricorn. Capricorn rules institutions, both corporation and government. The astrology literally says, and Pluto rules like corruption. Every single institution in this world right now is blatantly, absolutely corrupt. Now, with the moon in Cancer going opposite that, there's a level to that that's kind of like, you know, the moon in Cancer is like, at the end of the day, you need to take care of your bills, you need to eat, you need to drink water, you need sunshine. And the moon in Cancer opposite Pluto and Capricorn is like, that's been fucking hard for people. Like, it blows my mind how people are surviving nowadays with how expensive everything is. And it's so difficult. Like, I get so mad and upset and frustrated with how difficult it's become to live, and just even take care of basic necessities like housing and food. You know, and they don't, when they say, oh, inflation's going down, they do not track food, housing, or oil, which are the three fucking things that you absolutely need to live. And regardless if you know, drive an electric car, you need oil for that stuff. Not that you want it, but you need it. And the reason I bring this up is that tightness might be there. But the other way I would look at it on a more personal level is you've got to take care, like, you know, for example, like I was very, very poor for a long time. And you got to figure it out at some point. Meaning, okay, you may not have $1 to your name, but you got to figure out something to eat. For me, that was like, I mean, again, I was like 19, 20, but I would smoke cigarettes. And when I say smoke cigarettes, I would go and buy the cheap big pack of tobacco and roll my own cigarettes and eat scoops of peanut butter. That was my dinner for a long time. Or I had a roommate who worked at a pizza place and he would bring home a pizza every night. So I got a slice of pizza. And then when I got a different job that actually made me a little bit more money, it was a part restaurant. So I begged my manager, like they would only give out like a free meal ticket like every once in a while. But I'm like, I'm poor. Can you please feed me? Like, you got to take care of business anyway. And I look at the moon opposite Pluto as like, it's tough, but you can't, having just the fear over everything doesn't help you versus being more of like, I've got to do what I got to do anyway. And, you know, I got to face the demon for what it is and take care of myself. But what I like about after that on Sundays, the moon goes into Leo. There's some pride there. There's some level of confidence after that. You know, each time and like, that's the thing, like when you're struggling with everything in life is like, you still make it happen at the end of the day. Like, you know, if you got kids and you're poor, like you find a fucking way to feed them. And I think that deserves a pat on the back. Like, that deserves confidence. And that's the thing, like your emotions and your thoughts dictate your whole reality. And if you can literally sit here and at least be proud of the fact that you still managed to take care of business, given all of the factors, you deserve that confidence. And I think that's something to wear as the moon goes into Leo on Sunday. And that's what I have to say about this week. We get into next week. We have the new moon in Virgo and Mercury stations direct, which is kind of like a double whammy of the same thing. So I think there's a lot of clarity in moving forward with things once we get to next week. And Venus squares Jupiter. We get our first challenge of like, okay, if I desire this and this is what I want, am I willing to change my beliefs about what I'm capable of doing in order to get it? So that's what I got for you guys. Like I said, like, share, comment this video. It helps me out. Let me know what you guys are going through, and I'll be seeing you next week.